So I just seen a great session there from Peter Detenda around Azure DevOps pipeline bringing cloud magic. It was amazing. Like, it's so eye-opening for me. Like, I don't know a lot about DevOps myself, but definitely some good takeaways from that session for me.
I mean, you know, I do like a bit of DevOps, and actually just looking here, one of the books that we have been supplied by our sponsor, Pack Publishing, is the Azure DevOps Explained book. So if you are doing the challenges on the app as you're going, that is a book that you can win.
Yeah, definitely on my reading list for the future now.
So one of the things that we kind of want to talk about, and it's something that we talk about quite often, and that's the split of gender within the sessions that we're doing or the events that we're doing. So Iain, what did we do first time round? The first event that we ran?
So we done 50 plus. So we kind of had a secret person come through at the end to make it over the 50% of female speakers. Last year, what was the number we had last year again? So we didn't quite aim it out as much. Yeah,
so it wasn't the same sort of balance, but in terms of numbers, we were up about 10-15%. And this year it's been quite interesting. So this year, anyone, if you've submitted the sessions were reviewed without name, race, gender, age, anything at all. So when the volunteers were actually reviewing the sessions, they just had the name of the session and the actual description of the session as well. So there was no way of telling anyone who it was.
Yeah, I mean, we did it all anonymous through a scoring mechanism. So the one session would have been scored 3 or 4 different times by different people, and that's how we came with this kind of whole transparent and making sure that there was no preference really on the session. It was about the content of the session. I think we've really kind of pulled together a great day on that. But from the back of that as well, I think we'll bring in Carissa and Janet here. Now, Carissa and Janet have been to all the events that we've held, and they've always kind of championed the women in technology. And it's interesting that what we see within the stats of what we've got here on the event, I just wonder how they see that within the real world outside the community events.
Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, I'll start, Janet. Is that all right? Thank you. First of all, I want to applaud you on what you've done, because what you're doing is you took a deliberate stance, which I know at times was controversial, to start a conversation and to start momentum. And then what happens is we take these deliberate actions and hopefully they build that flywheel so that you can then get to the point, which I love, which is it's all anonymous, right? Any audition is behind a screen and it's based solely on the content. And the fact that you're at what, plus 100 sessions now that are women as a result of that?
So there's over 100 sessions of people who identify as female. So that for us, I mean, it's over 25% of the speakers. So for us, that's brilliant.
That's brilliant. And that's 2 years progress from where in a smaller event, you said, we are deliberately going to advertise for women and get more women involved. I think it's fantastic. I think in the community at large, just what I see happening, and granted our community has grown, is I see a lot more activity of women in what we're doing to promote the cause. And when you see more women out there putting themselves forward, more women are likely to come up behind and do that as well. So it's all about building that momentum, and events like this really do help. I see it on LinkedIn. I see it in other areas as well. But that's my point of view. Janet, what do you think?
100%. I've been in the community a very long time, and used to be the rarity at events, very much so the rarity as the token girl that could understand what conversations was actually happening with the techie boys. And as the community has grown, especially with the helps of you guys, we are seeing much more female representation, and I want to say that it's female representation for their experience rather than for their gender. It's people are getting recognized for their ability. We're seeing a lot more people getting to the top of the pile for their ability, and I'm seeing a lot more that it's now becoming the norm. It's not necessarily like, I used to walk in and go, oh, a girl's here, but now it is very much the norm that we have not quite 50-50 split, but we definitely have a larger representation of females. I would like to put a bit of a challenge Do you? So we've got through the first, we haven't quite finished the first hurdle, but I am beginning to see a lot more women represented in technology. But am I going to put the challenge and say, are we getting paid what our male colleagues are getting paid? If we have equal experience, do we come in, do we all have the correct grade when we come in? I've also began to feel that a woman needs to tick every single box to get it. And that might be our next controversial thing. Not that we, guys, that we never look for controversy, but I definitely think we're getting definitely there with the more women. But is it equal yet? That's my question. I'm not 100% feeling that it is. I still feel it's not quite even feel. What do you think, Carissa? What do you think, boys?
I'll let Carissa go first.
I'm itching to talk on this. So I think it requires the same amount of deliberate action that was put at the beginning in regards to visibility. And by the way, just because that deliberate action is now showing results doesn't mean we take our eye off the ball, as we would say, right? You have to continue to be inspecting that. You have to be continuing to feed that flywheel. When it comes to pay, Janet said a couple interesting things. That whole idea of checking all the boxes, that is also on women when we think to apply for roles. We also think that we have to have all the boxes before we even aspire to the next role. So there's a little bit on us where we need to be pushing ourselves. And that when we do, it needs to be received as it would be received from the male gender. And this comes down to, there's a lot of quotes out there, but it's like if a woman stands up and says, I did this, I am worth this, it can put people on their back foot a little bit. Unlike if a man does it, oftentimes, again, how they do it in question, it's not as poorly received. So women aren't as likely to ask for what they deserve, right? And so with that, we need some deliberate inspection. We need some deliberate action on behalf of sponsors to make sure that pay equity is there, because it is less likely to be driven sometimes by women because of the hurdles they face. That's my point of view. It still exists. The wage gap still exists. You guys, we talked about this a couple years ago on a podcast, right?
We did, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's something that people still have to inspect, and they have to write the check to make it better. And it needs to be voiced by the women. It needs to be voiced by advocates. That's my opinion. What about you guys?
No, I definitely think there is still something in that. I mean, places I've been working recently or before, I've been part of interview processes, obviously scoring people as they're coming in for interviews, and then seeing the offers that go out the door.
Yeah.
I've seen females with more experience. They've either done more years, they've got more certifications, they've worked on larger projects. I've seen them, what I would probably say is lowballed, opposed to what a male counterpart with maybe less experience is going for. And I know what you mean by the women, if they stand up and say, I've done this is how much I'm worth, it's seen as, oh, you're very almost abrasive, you're very confident, you're very cocky. But if a guy does it, it's bravado, it's great, he's brilliant, he's confident, he's out there, he's the one that's going to drive us forward. Now, these individuals could be exactly the same sort of individual, but you're going to negotiate differently based on their gender.
Yes.
I think it comes down, I post the same LinkedIn post once a year. Every year I post it. And it's about never telling a little girl that she's bossy. She has skills. And we all remember growing up that little girls weren't allowed to be organizers. And from a very young age, we're told that that's not meant to be what what we're meant to be doing. And it sort of is maybe an unconscious bias for the rest of their lives growing up, both for male generation people who see it and go, oh, well, I know that's not meant to be right. So I think it's something that should be the next thing we really face, is how we react to statements made by different genders, and to stop putting those assumptions straight away that, oh, I couldn't work with her because she seems that she's going to be aggressive. Yep. But we don't think that about men.
No.
There is that. It is, and it might even be, as you say, an unconscious bias that people that are doing that. But the other part is, as you say, it's getting the sponsors involved, getting the people who are doing these hirings, but also the hiring managers as well. It starts at that level. So if the hiring manager is always the person that's asked, what would you pay them? There's conversations with HR, but if you're in that sort of position, if you think that you can lowball somebody because they're female, just have a wee check to yourself and think, is that the right thing to do? Why is she worth less than this person? That's kind of where my challenge is to add on top of Janet's one.
It's not, so I don't think I've got much more to say on it because everything's been said there. I completely agree with what has been said. And why is there a difference? Why is there an inequality there, especially the way that everything's moving forward in one way? As Carissa said, because there's been progression in the number of people that are represented at sort of events like this, why is that other side lowballed? Why is that not come up at the same time? And I don't think we can answer it at this point, but it's certainly a conversation piece to think of and to take away and to continue that conversation around it and change it.
Yeah.
So I think what we've done is we've set ourselves up for another podcast, haven't we?
I think so.
Yeah, I think in that, at that point, I know we've got these sort of quick intermission between sessions, and I'm aware that this conversation is something you guys are so passionate about, and I love hearing about it because it educates me in stuff that naively I don't think about because I don't see it. It's something that we've always set out to have equality. So I know it exists when we talk about it, and I'm not shocked, and I'm shocked to hear it. I just don't know what I can do about it, and that's where that educational piece comes in, and having a conversation, I think, definitely would help me as much as everybody else.